This story is about a daughter-in-law who worked hard to sell her in-law's farm products, got falsely accused by her mother-in-law, made a fuss, and received an apology. Let's take a look together. Please subscribe and like our channel.
Hello. I'm a married woman with 2 sons. And it's been 20 years since my husband and I tied the knot. I'll start with an old story. When our first son turned 1, we wondered whether or not to have a traditional Korean first birthday party. We considered inviting both sets of grandparents, but due to some harsh words from my in-laws, the relationship between the 2 sets of parents was not good. So we decided to have separate meals with each set of parents. My parents even once told me they hoped they wouldn't have to see their in-laws again. We saved the money that would have been spent on the first birthday party, and instead took some high-quality photos of our son, and even took a short trip abroad with our small family. A few weeks later, we celebrated my mother-in-law's birthday, and also celebrated our son's first birthday in advance. But my father-in-law said to me, because I'm an only daughter, I don't understand the emotional bond between people. He wanted to have a big party in the village hall. I was shocked. We had decided not to have a party at all. And now he wanted one in the village hall? I told him we wouldn't do that. Our son was suffering from a severe cold, had symptoms of gastroenteritis, and was constantly diarrheic and lethargic. My father-in-law asked me for a week straight if we were really not going to have a first birthday party. When I confirmed we weren't, he seemed upset, and said he would come to us because it would be difficult for us to travel by high-speed train in Korea. He said he would come with his younger son, who often uses a one-ton truck for work. But the most important thing was that he didn't even know the exact date of my child's birthday. He kept asking, and I kept answering, but he would ask again. I couldn't understand why he was so focused on the first birthday party, when he didn't seem to care about our child at all. After all, we are the parents of the child. Anyway, we didn't have the first birthday party. Let me tell you about my father-in-law. When our child was 100 days old, he came to our house and kicked the front door, shouting for us to open it quickly. I was startled, worrying that our neighbors might have heard him. As soon as he entered, he picked up our sleeping child without even washing his hands, causing the baby to wake up and cry. He criticized us for having the 100-day celebration at home, instead of having a big party. My parents were there at the time and saw everything. They became reluctant to meet my in-laws after that. I live in the southern part of Gyeonggi province, and it takes 3 hours by car to get to my in-laws' house. I've only talked about my father-in-law so far. But my mother-in-law also has a very unusual personality. They are farmers. They grow melons, rice, sweet potatoes, peppers and sesame, and they work a lot. My father-in-law loves farming, has good physical strength, and is very greedy for work and money. When I tell my friends how much farming they do, they are surprised. They say they should reduce the workload, and that even a young man in his 30s couldn't do that much. When I first got married, we ate only what my in-laws sent us. But as time went on, they asked us to sell the farm produce. They had a contract with a company that harvested and packaged melons. So my in-laws only had to focus on growing them. But a few years ago, I received a call from my mother-in-law early in the morning. The melons sent to the auction had been rejected, and it was a big problem. 100 boxes of melons were tied up at the Gurek Agricultural and Fishery Market, and they couldn't be sent back to my mother-in-law's region. She asked us to sell them. So I talked to the owner of a fruit shop I know, and he took the goods and posted a message on his banned Korean social media. And we sold all 100 boxes of melons. I still shudder at the thought of how much loss we would have suffered if we hadn't been able to sell the 100 boxes of melons. Once they asked us to sell sweet potatoes. Dozens of boxes of sweet potatoes were harvested, and 10 boxes were left. My husband and I happened to have to go to my in-laws' house. So we loaded 10 boxes of sweet potatoes into our car. On the way to my in-laws, I contacted my acquaintances and friends. Fortunately, we were able to sell all 10 boxes. Because of the cold weather, I was worried the sweet potatoes might freeze. So instead of sending them by courier, I planned a route around Seoul and delivered them directly. I was severely ill with a cold at the time and could barely speak, but I went around and made the deliveries. Then, before Chuseok Korean Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law called and asked me to sell red pepper powder. I asked her how much I should sell, and she told me to sell the remaining 400 pound, an old Korean unit of weight as I see fit. So, I called my parents and explained the situation. And my mother contacted her acquaintances. We managed to get orders for about 100 pound. It was 15,000 won per pound, but my mother went to the mill and heard the price of red pepper powder and called me. The price of red pepper powder was not 15,000 won. It should be 16,000 won, she said, which was very awkward. My mother had to call 10 people to get the orders. If she wanted to get an extra 1,000 won per pound, she had to make 10 more calls, right? So, I asked my husband what to do, and he said, "Let's pay for it. We can't let mom lose money." So we ended up paying 100,000 won. But the next year, she called again asking to sell red pepper powder. We hurriedly took orders and called my mother-in-law. And she was laughing and said, "Oh, it's all sold out. I don't have any red pepper powder this year." Just a couple of days ago, she asked me to take orders, and after I spent 2 days taking orders, she was happy that someone bought a lot and told me there was no red pepper powder left. I was utterly flabbergasted. Another time, she sent us some grain powder, which was really delicious. We shared it with some friends, and they wanted to buy some. So I called my mother-in-law to place an order. She was happy and said it was 17,000 won per pound. So I told her to be sure about the price this time, because I was going to tell my friends it was 17,000 won. She told me not to worry. So I told my friends the price, and got their addresses and contacted my mother-in-law. But then she went to the mill, and said that other old ladies were getting 18,000 won each. And she felt it was unfair to get 17,000 won, so she couldn't do it. At that time, we had received orders for 20 pound. It was a smaller amount compared to the last time with the red pepper powder. So we filled in the price difference and transferred it. My in-laws work very hard, and the quality of the agricultural products they produce is good. We've never been scolded after selling. Instead, it's just a bit of a headache and a concern for me. I think that parents who farm in rural areas probably have similar situations to ours. My mother-in-law said that she had 10 mul, an old Korean unit of weight of sesame left, and asked me to sell it. I've only ever eaten sesame oil that my mother-in-law squeezed. I've never seen anyone buy sesame seeds. But women in their 50s and 60s buy sesame seeds from someone they trust and squeeze their own oil. So I contacted my friends again. But then they asked if they bought one, how many bottles of sesame oil would they get, and how many d an old Korean unit of weight would it be. So I called my mother-in-law again and asked, and she said 1 mul is 10 d. And when I asked how many bottles of sesame oil that would be, she said she didn't know. I couldn't believe it. How can I sell it then? I asked, but my mother-in-law insisted on selling it. Fortunately, a principal who works in the same field as me said she would sell the sesame seeds. So I went to her house and delivered the sesame seeds. I know that my in-laws, who work hard, should get the market price. But I don't understand why my mother-in-law raises the price in the middle. It puts me in a very awkward position. When I told my friend about this, her mother-in-law said it was a burden to ask her children to sell the crops. So she just sold them cheaply to the agricultural cooperative. I didn't know there were people like that. Sometimes, there are people who generously pay for the high-quality agricultural products of my in-laws. Those who buy directly from the farm want to buy at a slightly cheaper price. And my in-laws think they should get the full price, because they've worked so hard. As someone who grew up in the city, I find it very difficult to sell agricultural products. I know they work hard from dawn, but it's really hard for me when they call and ask me to sell something in the middle. I just want to enjoy what they give me. It's better for the crops. My in-laws worked hard on to be sold at their rightful price. But then, my father-in-law, who used to work a lot, suddenly had problems with his eyes. So my father went to a hospital in his area for a checkup. It turned out to be nothing else but his eyes. So we made an appointment at a university hospital in Seoul, and they came to our house. My father's eyes were almost blind. So he was anxious, and my mother-in-law came with him. My husband took my father to the hospital. And my sister-in-law wanted to serve my mother-in-law a meal, so the three of us went to a Korean traditional restaurant and had a delicious meal. While we were eating, I told her I would take her to the TT's station the next morning. But she asked me to move the ticket time forward. When I asked why, she said it was going to rain in the afternoon. So it would be perfect to arrive early and sell sesame seeds. My father-in-law was in a state where his income was almost zero, because he had given away most of his preparations for rice farming due to his poor eye condition. I thought he might be doing a little bit of farming, so I changed the ticket again. In the morning, as my husband was preparing to leave, he asked, "Mom, why did you move the ticket time forward?" She replied, "Your wife made us leave early." I was lying in the master bedroom with the door shut at the time. I changed the ticket because my mother-in-law asked me to. But I guess she blamed me because she thought my son would say something if she told him she was going to the countryside to work. I was so unjustly treated at that time that I was almost in tears. I had taken care of my in-laws' meals for 2 nights and 3 days, washed and spread out their beds, gave them pocket money. But I was very angry with my mother-in-law for saying that I had kicked them out early. But since it was early in the morning when they were leaving, I didn't say anything. In the evening, when my husband came home and saw me, he gave me a department store gift certificate, saying I had worked hard. My husband knows how much I care when my in-laws come. And he always says nice things. So this time, I said something. I changed the ticket because my mother-in-law said she was going to plant sesame seeds. But she said I was kicking her out early in the morning. I feel so unjustly treated. And he suggested we call my mother-in-law. My husband called my mother-in-law, and she said she had arrived home safely and thanked me for my hard work. He deliberately made the call on speakerphone. "Mom, I know it's hard for you to go to the hospital in Seoul. But I also get really nervous when my in-laws come. This time, you asked me to move the ticket forward because you were planting sesame seeds. But you said it was because I changed the time that you were leaving early? I heard everything in the master bedroom. Did you think I wouldn't hear? I was really surprised to hear you pushing me away as a bad daughter-in-law just through one door. Mom, I tried to make sure you and Dad were comfortable for 2 nights and 3 days. But I was really upset that you blamed me and left. I've been married for 20 years, and I've let go of all the harsh words. You and Dad have said I've understood and resolved all the whims you've had while asking me to sell agricultural products. But your bad temperament doesn't seem to change. You're almost 80 years old in a couple of years, and I hope you use your heart a little more kindly. And I can't just let this one go. She said she had omitted that part because she thought her son would be upset if they were farming sesame seeds. And she didn't know I was listening, and she apologized. Mom, from now on, if you're going to the hospital, you'll have to keep staying at our house, but I'm done with lying about things I didn't say. I won't tolerate it anymore. And my eldest child heard you lying to me. She said it was really strange, Grandma. And that she felt sorry for Mom, because she saw how well you treated Grandma and Grandpa. And she patted my shoulder and went to school. I don't know what to say to comfort her. I said. My mother-in-law apologized again, and my husband said, Mom, don't do that to Utai. You know how much we care about you and Dad. Why do you make a good daughter-in-law look bad? I also take leave from work and take you and Dad to the hospital, even if it's hard, because I'm your child. Mom, please speak nicely. Then we can continue to treat you well. And he wrapped it up. I wish my mother-in-law would change a little, but that seems unlikely. Looking at what I've written, I feel like I'm a daughter-in-law who lacks generosity. Maybe I should just let it slide with the elderly in the countryside. Anyway, I'll leave the judgment up to you. Thank you for listening to my story.
It seems like the writer is a kind person just for enduring all this time. If she hadn't spoken up, her mother-in-law would likely remain unaware for the rest of her life, so I think she did well in addressing the issue. It's also good that her husband is on her side.